I got a lot of respect for most of this program. They've got a good team. We watched the game versus Missouri, watched the game versus Wichita State. They got some talent, and he does a really good job putting those kids in position to have success. So credit to them. I mean, we didn't just not play well. I mean, I know a lot of times you hear that. They play well. They got a good team, and they gave us some problems that we thought they could give us. And so I'm proud of our guys for finding a way to win. Obviously, we got some contributions from a few different guys tonight. I thought MA was really good. His energy early on, his effort on the glass really helped us set the tone inside. I thought Keelan was back to his rebounding self. He was really, really effective on the glass. And then Bryce and Rondel off the bench, those guys' defensive presence and energy, is becoming something we can really count on. And I got to go back and watch the film. I'm going to contest that Rondel had more than 2 steals tonight. For some reason, I can't accept that. I swear he had about 7, but he was really active. And so then we got a pretty good, strong close from Kate. I think obviously he knew when it was time to go make plays and be more aggressive looking to score, and we kept calling his number. But Max Asmus was a terror for us tonight. He's a really, really good player, and somebody I think is going to have a really good season for us.
After the Oakland game, you were talking about how good this was going to be for the team, because they put you in some different situations and you really learn a little bit about yourself. This one kind of had a similar feel a little bit. Do you walk away with the same feeling that this was a good one, that your team was put in some situations?
Yeah, I mean, and again, I get it from our fans' perspective. I'm sure they would rather us win a game where they don't have to worry about it late. I find very little value in winning a game by 50 points. I'd much rather be in these positions. Granted, we win, right, as much as possible before we start Big 12 play. Just look at the history of Big 12 play over the last decade. There aren't very many 50-point games. A lot of them are 3-4 possession games. You got to make good decisions late. You got to take care of the basketball, make free throws. And as much experience as we can get these young guys in those situations for now, just next week, the better for us. I'm happy we won. We're not satisfied. We have a lot of work to do, but these situations are going to bode well for us down once we get in the conference.
Members of the media, if you have a question for head coach Mike Boynton, please click raise hand. We'll try and get to everybody. Our first question is going to come from Jacob Unruh from the Oklahoman. Go ahead, Jacob.
Hey, Mike. I kind of want to start with the 3-point defense. How concerned are you with that right now?
It's concerning. Certainly something we need to, whether schematically or personnel, we got to figure it out. But what I do know is the other coaches in our league, the other coaches that we're going to play are watching the film just like we will, and are going to try to find ways to exploit that if it's an issue for us. I've got confidence in our staff and our players' ability to respond. But to a certain degree, you got to give credit to the other guys. They got to make them too now. I mean, it's one thing to shoot a bunch of threes, but they shoot them from deep and they're making them at a high clip. So, I stopped short of trying to put it all on us. I got to give them credit for making the shots where they had them, and they did tonight at a pretty high clip. But it's certainly something we need to watch film and figure out a strategy for.
You talked about Bryce and Rondel earlier, and you've talked about them in the past together. But when did you realize they had this kind of special connection where they can come out and be your spark plugs, for lack of better words?
I kind of figured it maybe about a month ago. Pretty early in practice, I would say probably practices 1 through 10, 15 maybe. We mix up the lineups pretty good to try to see which combinations work best together. And then the last 10 or so practices as we head into the season, we try to start having guys play together, like our starting lineup. And what I found is those 2 guys enjoy playing against Cade and Ice in practice. And they really take pride. They've gotten better because of that. And Cade and Ice have gotten better because those guys practice like that every day. So it's really going to be a benefit to our team long term to have those 2 guys as complements to one another, but also to Cade and Ice, because when I have all 4 of them on the court together, which we do quite a bit, we can be really, really aggressive defensively.
And I kind of thought Rondel had another steal there somewhere too that got taken away. I will say that. On the topic of Cade closing it out, he struggled that first half. how big is this for his growth to kind of have those struggles and then to finish the way he did?
Yeah, I mean, I stopped short of I don't want him to feel like he's got to be Superman. Right? The expectations of him maybe are unfair for a kid who just turned 19 in September, but they are what they are. They're not going away. We're not going to hide from it. But at the same time, he's going to have games where he's not his best. If I was ever good enough to get 29 and 3 on a bad night, I would not be coaching. I'd still be playing somewhere. But he's a really talented kid who understands that you have to play through that. You can't get caught up in every play. He has some bad decisions early, which led to turnovers. And he really settled down and looked to score late in the game when we really needed him to. So I got no doubt he'll be in Washington tomorrow. He'll figure out a way to play better the next time out.
Thanks, Mike.
Talking about Cade closing and some of the remarkable things that he can do, but Dell and Bryce, they're drawing some of the loudest cheers in Gallagher with their defense. This is like Oklahoma State type basketball. I'm kind of curious your take on.
Exactly what I told our team, Gavin. We talk about the history of our program a lot with these guys. We want them to understand we don't put defense on the back of the shorts just because it looks cute. It means something in this program. Mr. Iba is the original defensive coach in the history of basketball, not just college basketball. And then obviously Coach Sutton, who played for him, carried that legacy on. The best teams in the history of our program have had a defensive identity. They've had a Tony Allen. They've had a Marcus Dove. They've had a Marcus Smart. They've had guys who've really taken pride in it. And there's a reason that those teams have been some of the most revered teams in the history of our program. And I think our guys are starting to understand it. Again, I go back, I feel bad that more of our fans can't come out and witness this and see the rebirth of that type of approach to our program. But I'm certainly proud to see our guys buying into it. And I told our guys, there's a reason that Rondel, although he didn't score very much, was probably the guy that fans left from here feeling the most excited about. Again, obviously that's what understanding how talented Cade is. But just the effort he plays with, the understanding that he can impact the game on the defensive end and not have to score a bunch of points to be appreciated. It's one of the unique things about this program, and it's why I'm so proud to try to resurrect it in some way.
Our next question is going to come from Marshall Scott from Pistols Firing. Go ahead, Marshall.
Yeah, Mike, I think you guys were like plus 15 combined this year in the first half, with most of that being the Texas Southern game. Is that sample size too small, or is there something that you guys need to be doing better to start the game?
Yeah, I usually take about a 5-game sample to look, so I'll go back now, probably tomorrow, and go through all the things that we've done and try to evaluate before we go out and play again on Saturday. I think it's about 5 or 6 games. That's probably a good sample size when the guys have played the right number of minutes. One of the things that's hard is you got so many moving parts. We didn't have Bryce the first game. He only played a little bit. Texas, so some of that stuff is hard to really manage until you get 10, 12 games and everybody's had enough time together. But I'll evaluate a lot of that tomorrow.
Kind of speaking to that, we saw Chris and Avery in the building tonight. Kind of how do you reintroduce them into the rotation, into minutes with, you kind of had a solid sample size without them so far?
Again, that's hard to answer, and it's not ducking the question. For that stuff, I do what the doctors and trainers tell us to do when they're available. They'll practice enough that they feel comfortable with what we're doing. They'll be available to play. We just weren't there tonight.
And I'm watching Farron out here right now. He's obviously struggling a little bit to start the year. What does he need to do? Does he just need to keep shooting and eventually he'll find it, or is there something technical going on?
I think part of it is just getting, again, comfortable with where shots are going to come. He's playing now with 2 pretty ball-dominant guards and Cade Nice, and he's got to figure out a way to how to space the floor. One of the things that's happening, though, is he's not getting a bunch of great looks because teams aren't leaving him. And so they're kind of banking on letting MA and Ice and Cade operate in the paint one-on-one, which, again, I'll take that. That's value for us. And then at some point, they're going to try to decide to take those things away. He's going to be the beneficiary of it.
Thanks, Mike.
Our next question comes from Ryan Breeden from the Ocala. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, Mike. MA has shown so far just how dominant he can be around the rim and in the paint with his posterizing dunks, his putback dunks, and tonight he showed a behind the back crossover. Can you talk about just how important it is to have someone who is like that within your program, especially off the bench?
Yeah, MA is going to be a joy in our program for a long time. I hope for a long time. He's a really, really talented kid. He's fearless. He knows who he is. And that's one of the things that a lot of times young kids struggle with. He's not the biggest guy, but we ask him to play the five sometimes. He doesn't complain about it. It's still something pretty new to him. But he plays with such a ferociousness around the basket. And he's a really strong kid for being a young guy. And so we're thrilled that he brings athleticism to us. He brings some toughness to us around the basket and somebody who can really finish. And as he gets more confident at the free throw line, he'll be even more aggressive around the basket because once we get him to being about a 75 to 80% free throw shooter, he's really going to be a hard person to deal with.
Yeah, he said that he tries to model his game and go a little bit after Giannis. What do you see? What would you have your comparison for him?
If he can become Giannis, I'll be a happy coach. What I want him to do is just focus on being his best every day, not what our job to do. Part of our job is to help him develop some of the things that he does well, but also enhance those other things in his game. Being able to finish off 2 feet, playing a little bit more under control. I think we saw that tonight from him, which is why he was more effective. The game was a little bit slower. It slowed down a little bit for him tonight, and so he was able to take care of the basketball and get shots up around the basket. Whereas first 3 or 4 games, he was a little sped up. He was playing a little bit too fast and really getting himself in trouble by over-dribbling in the paint.
And then lastly, you as well as several other coaches around the country are wearing the towel on your shoulder for Coach Don Thompson. Can you just talk about what doing something like that, especially for the rest of the season, what that means to you?
So when I was growing up, my dad was a Georgetown fan. I didn't know why, but I came to understand why as I started getting into basketball myself. So his impact on the game, I'm not even sure you can quantify it. Obviously, the first African-American coach to win a national championship and really was a trendsetter and really raised the bar and changed the expectations of what Black coaches could do in this profession. And so just to honor that legacy, what he's been able to do in terms of paving a road for young people like myself, is why I try to work as hard as I can because guys like him made the sacrifices several years ago so that I could be here with this opportunity. And I don't take it for granted. And I hope that his family understands how much I appreciate him and what he did to give me this opportunity. So we'll do as much as we can to honor his name, his legacy, and his life as we go through this season.
Thank you.
Well spoken. Our last question is going to come from Joseph Fazio from the Ocali. Go ahead, Joseph.
Hey, Coach, Keelan tonight had a career high in rebounds. And when you think about Keelan compared to his brother, he's more of a perimeter player. But Matthew said he was probably one of the best rebounders on the team. Is that something you see a lot in practice from him?
Yeah, it's actually what he does the best, to be perfectly honest. And when he gets himself in trouble is when he gets away from that identity. Caleb, he's not as good a rebounder mostly because he's usually playing against guys bigger inside around the basket. And so he's a little bit more occupied with trying to block out. Keelan's, especially on the offensive end, is much more difficult to block out because he's usually being guarded by someone smaller than him on the perimeter. And so he's got a pretty good knack for finding the ball, getting his hands on it. And it's certainly something we've seen for the last 2 years. He's got a very, very good feel for getting to the offensive glass, getting putbacks. And once he gets his confidence back from the shooting standpoint, he'll add another element to our offensive scheme.
Both the Boone twins have, been thrust into the starting role this season. Just how has their progression been so far compared to their freshman year?
It's coming along. Again, Caleb was good tonight. He was better. I think he's gotten better the last couple of games. We're being more assertive around the basket. We just kind of got into a rhythm late in the game where we were playing a little bit smaller and needed to be able to switch, to be quite honest, a little bit more effectively on the perimeter. But I thought Caleb has done a really good job the last few games. And Keelan kind of found himself again tonight by getting to the offensive glass, by getting some putbacks, and really bringing some defensive intensity for us on the defensive end.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Well, Coach, that'll do it for questions. While we've got the group here, though, is there anything else maybe that you feel like we missed or something that was important from this game or the direction the team is headed?
No, I mean, again, I want to give credit to all Roberts. They did a great job. But I also want to thank our fans again. I can't talk about enough how much they mean to a young team. We're playing a bunch of guys out there who playing just their 5th game for us, and to feel the atmosphere in here. Obviously, we're still in the middle of a pandemic, and we know how serious it is, and why we can't have a full crowd. But the people that are here are really engaged in what's going on, and we can't thank them enough for that. So kudos to our fan base, to our students. We wish them well on finals. I heard that there was a student who was in here studying. He's my favorite this week. That he took my advice and found a way to come to the game and study. A guy who's multitasking in a way that I was never able to do. So whoever that was, shout out to him.